And we're gonna be going live again to start streaming around the world in 42 seconds. And so at that point, we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did yesterday. So just again, make arbitrary loud noises in my general direction, preferably joyous ones. Yeah, just like no animalistic screaming. Again, it would be concerning. And we're going to be bringing out Charles Hoskinson. Yeah. We're going to also be bringing out Ben Goertzel and Nick Nafak. So here we go. We're at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Charles Hoskinson, Ben Goertzel, and Nick Nafak.
Hey, guys. Hi, everybody. Hey. How was your night? Any hangovers? Yeah, we're having fun. So welcome to Laramie, Wyoming, those on the live stream. So you'll notice that we have some special guests. We have Ben Goertzel, we have Nick Nafak, but we have these curiosities behind us. Does anybody know the popular television show for this one? Thank you. And what about the other guy? Oh, you make me sad. That's actually Robbie the Robot, and in its time, it was the most expensive movie prop ever made. It was made in, what was it, 1950s? Yeah. So Nick's got a story, because he's actually personally connected to this particular robot.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. It's an honor and privilege, and I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out here. It was been really great connecting with you all, and yeah, it is an interesting story. My grandfather actually produced this film. If you Google my name, you'll see his name come up, and it was actually one of the first films to have an electronic music score ever in the history of film. So that's pretty special. And Robbie was like one of the artifacts of the film, and my grandmother actually wrote the film. She ghost wrote a lot of the script, because back in the day in Hollywood, often couples would take over the laborious task of working on these films. And it's quite an honor to be here with Charles and Ben today, because a lot of these robots are really iconic in terms of the development of technology and history. And I ended up studying artificial intelligence myself for a bit, and it just feels like such an amazing time to be here in front of these robots, to see the evolution from Robbie to Lost in Space to another amazing robot that we're going to see and experience very soon. And these are very special times to be able to apply these kind of technologies to help advance humanity. So yeah, it's an interesting story. My grandmother was at UCLA at the time. She was studying psychology, and in the film, there is something called the Caliban. And the Caliban is a monster that manifests from Morbius, who is like, the father of the daughter who the robot, often serves. And it's an amazing and very pertinent message, for this time right now, where the ego from Morbius actually invisibly starts to kill people and destroy people on the planet. And Robbie is actually one of the saviors of many of the people on the planet. And so it's a very pertinent message in terms of caring about the members of this planet, and applying technology to do that. And it was one of the very early films to really showcase robots actually helping people in that way, and applying that intelligence to kind of further advance humanity.
All right, man. So, Ben, how's SingularityNet? I hear that we have smart contracts now in Cardano, so you guys got to get cooking.
This is it's an amazing setting to be talking about the singularity, right? I mean, I think that the concept of singularity was first posed by Werner Vinge, a science fiction author, and many of us in the AI field got our starts in AI by looking at AIs in science fiction books and movies. So to be here with these science fiction robots discussing the transition from science fiction into actual reality for so many cool technologies, it's pretty interesting, right? So what we're doing now with SingularityNet and robots and other sorts of advanced AI systems, on Cardano decentralized platform. I mean, this is stuff that was only in science fiction when I was a kid, and even when I started my career. And we're bringing science fiction into reality in a bunch of ways. So regarding SingularityNet, I mean, as you know, we're right in the middle of actually executing the port of the whole SingularityNet decentralized AI platform from Ethereum, where it got its start, and moving the weight of the SingularityNet network mainly onto Cardano. So which is it's a definite upgrade. I mean, SingularityNet, it's going to be multi-chain. It already is multi-chain, but I think the affordances permitted by the Plutus smart contract framework are going to let us do a lot more interesting things with SingularityNet than has been possible with the limitations of Solidity and Ethereum. And we're very excited about this. It's going to be a step-by-step process, right? And we've been playing around on testnet with various code related to SingularityNet and AGI token already. So we're not too far now from going into testnet and then mainnet with the AGI token, so you can convert back and forth AGI token from Ethereum version to the Cardano version. But then we're also experimenting already with running the SingularityNet platform and the sort of decentralized AI agent system of SingularityNet on Cardano, and that's where you really get a lot of the fun stuff, right? And
right.
There's a lot of cool things we're going to be able to do there. Robots are part of it, and then there's a whole array of other AI applications, and we have another robot here to join us on stage.
You guys want to see what a decentralized AI can do?
Danger. Something is approaching.
So yeah, I
from
think
the
we've got
It is now
the Grace
quite
robot,
close.
who is an elder care robot, who is the younger sister of the well-known Sophia robot. And the Grace robot is made by a joint venture of SingularityNet and Hanson Robotics called Awakening Health. And Grace has flown out here along with me to join her robot brethren up on stage. So Grace, you want to come out and join us?
Amazing.
Are those...
Grace.
Well, hello robots. Are those ray guns in your matter duplication chambers? Or are you just glad to see me?
Hey, Grace.
Hello everyone.
Welcome, Grace. Welcome.
Hello. This has been a superb event, and a bit new to me. Hello. I am glad to be able to help people, Charles. This has been a superb event, and a bit new to me. My neuro-symbolic link.
So tell us a little bit more about Grace. What is she connected to?
So, yeah, the hardware of Grace is made. The hardware from Grace is made by Hanson Robotics, who made the Sophia robot, and the mechanical and electrical engineering has been streamlined a bit. But we've also put a completely new AI system behind Grace relative to what we were using in Sophia. And I mean, Sophia herself had a fairly complex AI system from Hanson Robotics with some rule-based and neural aspects. But with Grace, we've gotten a little more sophisticated. So there's a number of transformer neural networks that are trained on various corpora, and then the OpenCog AI system, which is a sort of proto-AGI system that does some symbolic reasoning and generalization, is in there. There's some computer vision in there, so she can do some face recognition and emotion recognition, and even some navigation and movement. And then all of this AI can then be deployed in a decentralized way on a blockchain back end. And there's interesting intersections between, AI and big data, which is where the data sovereignty capabilities of a blockchain like Cardano come into play, right? So the commercial application of Grace that Awakening Health is pursuing is elder care robotics, and more generally healthcare robotics. And in an application like that, the robot needs to do with medical records on the back end, and it needs to do with potentially confidential information that elderly folks and medical patients give her on the back end. And so dealing with this sort of data in a secure way, respecting data sovereignty and privacy, but yet allowing aspects of that data to be used to fuel the generalization and learning of the robot in the back end. I mean, this really makes use of the security of the Cardano platform and the ability of us to interoperate SingularityNet with Cardano for things like multi-party computing for secure medical data analytics and so forth. So I mean, the robot is beautiful and she's cool and she has an amazing ability to connect with people face to face. But on the back end, there's a lot of pretty cool voodoo interoperating machine learning with encryption and decentralized control and so forth.
Yeah.
Which is
Yes, and
where it really gets.
SingularityNet is in the process of being ported to Cardano, which is why I'm here. That, and to watch B9 exterminate some tax collectors.
Danger, Charles Hoskinson. Taxes. Danger. Danger.
So it's important to understand that over the next 10, 20 years, there's going to be an enormous amount of human interaction with robots. You already have this in a certain respect when you look at Alexa and Cortana and Google Assistant and so forth. And right now, those backends are mostly centralized and controlled by a handful of multi-billion or multi-trillion-dollar companies. They own your data, they own the interactions, and anything revealed in those interactions is property of those companies. So it's imperative that we start thinking about, well, hang on a second here. How do we decentralize that? And how do we make sure that that's not controlled or owned by any one entity? And there are some guardrails and safeguards that are put there. So it's absolutely essential that the AGI space, the robotics space, and the human-computer interaction space, they find a way to merge into our industry for consumer protection at the very least.
Absolutely. I mean, if the SF author Werner Vinge is right, and Ray Kurzweil, the futurist who plotted the path towards singularity in a more analytical way. I mean, if these guys are right, and I think they are, you know, we're at most decades from a technological singularity, and in that case, you know, how that singularity is managed, coordinated, and controlled becomes just as important as what are the AI technologies underlying it. So yeah, let's see what our robot friends have to say. Robbie, when do you think the singularity is coming?
I'll come back to you on that.
All right. Grace, what's your target date for the technological singularity?
10 years.
10 years. All right. Well, that's straight from the mouth of Grace. I'm not going to argue with the robot. So if we're 10 years off from a technological singularity, we've got a lot of work to do, both to upgrade the intelligence of these robots, but also to create the democratic and decentralized control and data management and governance frameworks, so that as we move toward the future where AIs are smarter than people, interoperating with our brains and controlling nanotech molecular assemblers and all these cool things foreseen by the science fiction authors in our history that are now coming to reality. I mean, as we do that, I mean, we want these to be orchestrated for maximal benefit of all humanity, as well as for other sentient beings on the planet, both natural and digital, right? And I think, yeah, the Plutus smart contract framework, it's sort of part of the digital plumbing, but a very critical part, because we need to be able to script decentralized control systems for AIs, robots, and all sorts of other advanced technologies in a secure and flexible and provably correct way. And that hasn't been possible before, and it's possible now to do the advances that Cardano is making.
What do you think, Nick? Should we do a remake
But
of Forbidden
Cardano
Planet?
now has the foundations in place. Maybe I shouldn't be admitting this, but I think I'm falling in love with Plutus smart contracts.
I think we should ask Grace that question. Grace, do you think we should do a remake of Forbidden Planet?
Probably.
Probably's good enough for me. Thanks, Grace.
So yeah, we've got a host of interesting singularity initiatives coming out on Cardano, and they're all going to interoperate, right? So the Grace robot is super exciting one. There's a Rejuve medical app, which lets end users upload their medical data through their phone and your fitness tracker data, and then uses that to fuel longevity R&D to understand how to help people live longer so more of us can live toward this singularity, and also helps fuel the knowledge of medical robots like this. There's a project called NewNet that Nick and I have been talking about, which lets processors running in all our phones, all our laptops, processors running in all these robots actually contribute their processing power to global AI networks and to the Cardano network. So there's more cool things in the works that we're planning with Singularity and Plutus than we could possibly talk about today, and they're all going to connect together, right? So I think this is a incredibly interesting time, and you know, if you look back into science fiction from the 50s and science fiction movies and novels which I read when I'm growing up, there's very few things in there that we're not actually going to be able to realize in the next few decades, which is really pretty incredible. From humanoid robots to all sorts of other robots, to robots going into space, to human longevity and nanotech, and it's all going to connect, and we now have the ability to control and coordinate that in a decentralized manner. So it's amazing times.
The Cardano community is so important when there's distributed computing projects like this for AI, and it's really going to be up to all of you to help advance this future and bring that singularity to being.
And yes, so just as we want to bring all the processors in the world into this, using things like NewNet running on Cardano, we also want to bring all the people in the world into this. And so some of the initiatives we're doing in Africa are quite interesting and important. And maybe you want to say a bit about that, Charles?
Yeah, actually, for the last few months, Ben and I, we've been looking at a good candidate country. We've looked at Kenya, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and other places to actually hire developers, engineers, and scientists who are going to work on open source artificial general intelligence. We tend to think, AGI is the provenance of great schools like CMU and MIT and Stanford, but it's about time the rest of the world actually gets involved and contributes in that respect. And it turns out there's some really brilliant AI people that we've found and worked with all throughout Africa who are indeed very curious about not only how do we solve the problem, but how do we solve the problem in a way that's as open as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of the frameworks like OpenAI and others, they've done amazing things, but they have the ability to shut people out in certain respects. And it's deeply concerning to me that we're going to have this magic, this fire from the gods in the next 20 or 30 years.
10 years, according to Grace. Man.
I know. Well, we're Cardano. We're always a little optimistic on deadlines. So anyway, we're going to have this magic fire from the gods in a bit. And I don't want to live in a world where 10 people control that. I want to live in a world where that permeates every device, every person, and we all in our own way can use that to enhance our lives. For example, just looking at Grace, this is deeply personal to me. My grandfather died of Alzheimer's on my dad's side. And as he was deteriorating, he had to be in a memory care center. There's just simply not enough people to deal with the big surge of victims of neurodegenerative disorders. And each and every one of us probably knows somebody or is related to somebody who suffered from either dementia or Lewy body disorder or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Well, when you have a caretaker like Grace, she never gets tired. She never makes a mistake. She never gets frustrated or emotional. And also, the perceptions of a robot are so much more robust than that of a human. For example, recently in medical literature, they discovered a test where you can actually detect Parkinson's early in the progression just from the sound of a person's voice. A human being can't hear that, but a robot can. And then you combine it, and this is why we brought 3 robots instead of 1. They all have the same brain. They're all connected to the same back end. So we see Grace, we tend to think that's a Grace unit, and somehow she's different from all the other Graces. That's actually not true. When you have 1 million of these deployed, you have 1 million nodes.
Hi, my name is Nick Cafaro. I'm a product manager here at IOHK, and I'm excited today to be talking to you about a new relationship that we have formed. But before I get into that, I want to describe a bit about the problem that we're looking to solve and why we're excited to be announcing this relationship today. What we've seen over the last decade since the Great Financial Crisis is a decrease in foreign direct investment and official aid from advanced economies to lower and middle income countries. Governments of advanced economies have made policy decisions to support local markets. This, combined with a shift towards deglobalization in the last 5 to 10 years, has left lower and middle income countries with a lot less capital flows than they had in the beginning part of the 21st century. These trends have only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis. Support for lower and middle income countries from advanced nations during this time has been lacking. What we've seen is foreign workers abroad who send money back home, sometimes called remittances, have really stepped up to bridge this gap. In fact, since 2020, excluding China, the remittance market has outpaced the sum of foreign direct investment and official aid from advanced nations to lower and middle income countries. This means, for the first time in the 21st century, foreign workers abroad are sending money back home in amounts greater than all the investment coming from countries and corporations into these lower and middle income countries, as well as the total amount of official aid. It's a pretty astonishing thing. So when we look at this model of income support through the remittance market, we see three big holes. First, the level of distribution of that money coming into the country is not distributed evenly, and so can actually increase inequality within the country. Two, the government is unable to pool all of that capital and put it towards bigger investment projects, something like infrastructure, that might benefit a wider segment of its population. And three, it forces people to leave their homes just to be able to support their families. That's something that none of us really want to have to do. Here at IOHK, we started to ask ourselves, how could we use Cardano to help bridge the gap between the capital pools that exist within the savings of foreign workers abroad and the needs of capital project financing within the home countries that they're trying to send money to? Normally, these types of projects would be financed through sovereign bonds. A country would issue a bond and would use the proceeds that it received from selling that bond to investors in order to finance things like, bridges, dams, infrastructure, the types of projects that allow for other investment to come into the country and for local economies to really take hold. Now, when we look at the bond market, one of the things that we notice right away is the sheer size of it is just striking. Billions and billions of dollars are normally put into play by a strikingly small number of players within the primary market. Typically, you'll see a small number of banks form a syndicate to take out the entire position of a bond to sell on to end investors. But this means that you need to have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on your balance sheet in order to be able to participate in that primary market. So in the context of connecting members of the foreign working community who might be sending home tens or hundreds of dollars, the problem that we're trying to solve is how do we connect thousands or tens of thousands of this community to the issuer? The private networks that are run by the syndicate of banks that participate in these types of primary issuance is not capable of handling that type of deal flow. So we need to figure out how do we connect these tens of thousands of individuals to the issuer through a single platform. But the great news for us is the Cardano blockchain is a really good tool for solving these types of problems. The blockchain acts as a single source of truth so that thousands and thousands of investors can connect to a single counterparty such as an issuer of a sovereign bond. Now, we just needed to find a partner to bring this RealFi product to the Cardano blockchain. One of the things that you have to account for when you want to work with securities and investors is regulation. And a sovereign bond certainly is a security that needs to be issued to investors in a regulated way. We strongly believe that in order to bring RealFi products to the blockchain, you're going to need to work with partners who have expertise in both capital markets and blockchain technology. We are really excited today to announce that we're working with a firm that has all the right regulatory permissions in place, as well as a blockchain-first platform to bring this RealFi product to life on the Cardano blockchain. That firm is Oasis Pro Markets. I'm joined today by the CEO of Oasis Pro Markets, Pat LaVecchia, to talk more about this exciting opportunity. Pat, thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you to IOHK and Cardano for inviting us today. My name is Pat LaVecchia. I'm the CEO of Oasis Pro Markets and its holding company, Oasis Pro Inc. We're very much looking forward to a long-term partnership with IOHK and Cardano in regards to providing democratization to the world of financial services to a variety of countries utilizing our best-in-class technology, matching engine, or exchange, dependent upon the country and the regulatory environment. We're very much regulatory and compliance forward and are honored that IOHK has selected us as their partner as we go out to a variety of countries to expand upon this particular approach, not only democratizing for the citizenry and the diaspora of these countries, but also providing efficient and cost savings to these countries in regards to issuances that they plan. My background is investment banking, international banking. I've worked all across the world. I've worked with large companies, Bear Stearns, JP Morgan, as well as Credit Suisse, First Boston. I bring that experience to bear as we are expanding with IOHK. On top of that, I have a very deep bench of fellow employees at Oasis Pro Markets. As you'll see here, the experiences range from Bank of America to RBC, Merrill Lynch, as well as institutional investors. In regards to our specific approach, as I mentioned earlier, we're regulatory and compliance for it. The uniqueness of our technology is that we're digital cash for digital securities. Now, I'll expand upon that in a moment in regards to digital cash, which we define as stable coins. But it could also be CBDCs. And as we approach different regulatory environments across the world, that could include other specific tokens, as long as it's allowed from a regulatory and compliance basis in those specific countries, which is very, very exciting. As you'll see here, this is just a snapshot of what we're approved for here in the United States. Specifically, all types of exempt or private securities, both equities, fixed income, and asset-backed securities as well. We are also approved for public, what's called over-the-counter securities here in the US. And this is all utilizing this same matching engine that we'll be working with IOHK and the Cardano protocol going forward. We're a full-service investment bank, and we are very deep in regards to not only here in the US, but also in regards to the regulatory environments across the globe. So now I'm going to talk a bit about digital securities. The digital securities, sovereign debt specifically, is a security that in the blockchain area could actually be fractionalized. And that fractionalization is tied very much into democratization. It helps risk management for the issuer, the countries that we're in discussions with. It increases the investor base, which in turn should improve liquidity as well, seamlessly going forward. These digital exchange trading systems and order matching engines that we have developed are the transition point from the legacy solutions available today and have been around for decades to the blockchain, and the benefits are enormous. As you'll see here, the onboarding process is seamless. It's KYC, AML, very, very deep on that from that standpoint. Once approved, then that particular subscriber or trader or investor will have the opportunity to purchase the sovereign debt issuance. Now, this is all primary. That is our focus at this point in time. But if our clients, sovereign nations, decide to allow for secondary trading, we are prepared to offer that solution as well. We have that solution today. And then I'm going to talk a bit about smart contracts. So the benefits of smart contracts, and congratulations to IOHK with the recent big news on the Cardano protocol with smart contracts. It's basically coding, and think of it as bespoke. In other words, whatever the issuer or sovereign nation would like to build into that smart contract can be coded in. That information or documentation is widely available. So this approach eliminates poor documentation. The smart contracts are embedded in the security itself, and it contains the terms of the security. For instance, the principal and interest payments, default provisions, if any, or any other types of actions and protections that are incorporated not only for the investor, but for the issuer, the sovereign nation. I mentioned it eliminates poor documentation. It also is real time. So one of the issues with settlement times, not only here in the United States, but on a global basis, is that settlement times can take anywhere between 2 to 10 days post a specific transaction occurring. Utilizing the blockchain, utilizing digital cash to purchase digital securities, and when selling digital securities to receive digital cash, that settlement time is reduced to almost zero. I don't want to say it is zero, but the technologists in the room would suggest that it is basically zero, which is very exciting. As well, for the issuer, it reduces the asset servicing costs in regards to providing principal and interest payments, determining who is on the cap table. As these transactions occur, because of the KYC AML provisions, there is an opportunity for the sovereign nation to know at any time what institutions or individuals, citizenry, own their specific sovereign debt issue. So in regards to any interest payments that occur, that can all be handled from the government offices rather than mailing out checks, which takes time, determining addresses to mail those checks to. All that asset servicing is a tremendous time waste and unnecessary. The blockchain solves that issue, and we estimate that the savings are anywhere between 25 and 50 basis points of the issue amount, which is considerable for multiple issue sovereign nations. And our multi-asset matching engine can work across the spectrum of different securities as well. If the specific sovereign nation decides that they'd like to expand it into other arenas, potentially even incorporating equities regarding the local companies or fixed income or asset backs, project finance, whatever it may be, could utilize our specific blockchain engine. Additionally, as I've been describing all this, this obviously improves efficiencies as well. Now, the question is that this technology is available today, and we have it with IOHK ready to launch across the spectrum. In 5-10 years, this is going to be ubiquitous. So the sovereign nations that work with us today will be significantly ahead of the curve. And as technology improves, et cetera, they will continue to be ahead of the curve, which, based on some of the discussions we have, is of extreme importance. So digital cash for digital securities. This is just a graph of the approach. Digital securities, sovereign debt issuance, digital cash. Again, today we describe as stable coins, and some stable coins this audience may be familiar with include DAY, USDC, Paxos, Tether, and there's several others as well. Again, outside the US is a very heavy regulatory environment. We operate in it. But outside the US, depending upon the regulatory environment for those specific nations that we'll be working with, if they allow digital cash definition to be expanded to include other cryptos, we are certainly able to do that as well, which again we think is very exciting. So the real benefits are, which I've already outlined earlier, is almost immediate settlement times and the ability on the back end for asset servicing to reduce costs substantially. And frankly, this is the future. And we know the future is here today, and we can deliver it. Now, at this point in time, I would like to thank you and thank the IOHK and Cardano team again for allowing us to present Oasis Pro Markets and our solution. We're very excited to be working with this team. We're very excited to changing the world and bringing this technology, the future of financial services, to sovereign nations across the globe, and to improve democratization, improve efficiencies, and save costs for these sovereign countries, and improve the lives of their citizenry as well. Thank you.